Joining me right now with his thoughts, former Utah Congressman, now Fox News contributor, Jason Chaffetz. Good to see you, Representative. I mean, do you think TPP 2.0 is in the cards?
Yeah, I do. I think President Trump is always negotiating, and he took such a strong anti-TPP position. That really helps us now, particularly when we've got issues in North Korea. That's a leverage point on China. And remember, the TPP is by and large, some of our best friends around the world. I do think there is room to do this as long as it's fair and it's balanced. As you pointed out, so many of these trade deals, they're not balanced. And I think that's a fair thing to ask for. And I think the president will put the United States first. And that's a good position to be in. So
it's so interesting, Representative, because he was so against this. And people were so concerned about us losing out in this trade deal. And now he's perhaps realizing that if it's structured appropriately, then we have the ability to influence China. I mean, we certainly already do, right? We are their #1 customer, but we have the ability to do so even more if we join together and lock arms with these other economies in these other countries. And if the world is saying, hey, China, you got to play by the rules or else, then maybe we have more leverage.
We will have more leverage if you bring along, the Japanese and the Australians and the others that are engaged in the TPP. Look, we are the big market. We are the big market that they want to be in. And the President Trump has the leverage point. He's right. This 5,000-page document that nobody truly understood. And I don't think people believe that Barack Obama was putting us in the driver's seat to make the best possible deal for the United States of America. And again, the strength of labor is going to look at this and believe, I think, Donald Trump. And, there are implications on the 2018 election and whatnot. And I just think the president is making the right move here.
Think about the implication of that, though, Representative, right? I mean, basically, he had a group of people that he brought along, and now he's going to continue to bring them along and maybe put us into some kind of trade agreement. In some ways, this is what leaders, though, should do, right? I mean, leaders need to be able to lead. And even though there may be many union representatives that are saying, I don't like the idea of this free trade agreement, if he can get them there, if they are in part his base and he brings them along, then that's really something.
Look, I think what he did on tax reform is a big boon to them. What he did in terms of getting rid of the regulation and bringing back coal production, what he's done on tariffs with steel, I think he has the credibility now with big labor. And if he can demonstrate that this is a better deal for the United States, they're going to be able to produce and manufacture more in the United States and be able to export those products on an even playing field, then it's going to be a win-win. And the president will be in a driver's seat, which is normally Democratic territory. This is normally where the Democrats play, but they've lost that mantle, and Donald Trump has grabbed it, and he's in the driver's seat now on it.
Pretty amazing. Let me ask you about James Comey. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Here's the president tweeting today. Let me share this with the viewers. And he writes, James Comey is a proven leaker and liar. Virtually everyone in Washington thought he should be fired for the terrible job he did until he was, in fact, fired. He leaked classified information for which he should be prosecuted. He lied to Congress under oath. He is a weak and untruthful slimeball who was at times, as time has proven, a terrible director of the FBI. His handling of the crooked Hillary Clinton case and the events surrounding it will go down as one of the worst botched jobs of history. It was my great honor, he writes, to fire James Comey. What's going to come of this Comey book? You've seen some of the excerpts already. And how much of a headache might this be for the Trump administration now?
I have not read the whole book. From all the excerpts I've seen, I don't think there's really any bombshells. There's some petty grievances on a guy who was fired from his job. I think people understand it. The biggest bombshell for me is his approach towards Loretta Lynch. He didn't believe that the Attorney General was actually going to be able to do her job in a fair and balanced way, that maybe there should have been a special prosecutor involved, that he thought that the Department of Justice was going to botch that. That is bigger news than anything I've heard on any other networks trying to give credence to. But I don't think there is some big bombshell. It's a tell-all from his perspective. The one that counts, though, will be the Inspector General report, and that's probably another 2 weeks away. And that's the one that everybody in the country should be paying attention to.
Most definitely. We sure will be. Jason Chaffetz, it's always good to have you here. Thank you so much, sir.